Welcome to the Neo-Masculine Minutes podcast show, where my co-host Dan Ploger and myself, John Protek, discuss the truth about unreliable information. In this current age of rapid-fire information, people are growing weary of biased personal opinions, outrageous ideological narratives, outright lies, and intentional propaganda meant to divide us. Dan and I wonder, when will people fall for the truth? When will they reject the informational threats that are destroying families, ruining societies, and destroying cultures all around the world? Welcome back to another episode of Neo-Masculinity Minutes podcast show with my co-host Dan Ploger and myself, John Protek, to discuss how we can become sentinels of information and how men can embrace their masculinity to protect the ones they love. I'm going to shake it up a little bit on this episode. I'm going to give Dan a scenario. And Dan, by trade, is a engineer, a college-educated engineer, not just one who calls himself that. He actually knows what the second law of thermodynamics actually is. So look that up. That's a good one for you. So here's a scenario, Dan. Put your thinking cap on, which he really always has on. Okay. I'm a DEI hire, and I've been hired to become the executive director of the United States Secret Service, right? And I've been tasked with many things, but one of which is to safeguard current presidents and dignitaries, as well as past presidents and dignitaries at times. And think about this, and this is about work, proficiency on your job, and what happens when you don't do your job. So this past weekend in Pennsylvania, there was a Trump presidential campaign rally, and a 20-year-old kid climbed up on a building, an AR-style rifle, and he popped off 7 or 8 rounds at Donald Trump stage. Everybody knows about it, but I'll just recap it briefly. And it grazes Donald Trump's ear, maybe takes off the top of it. There's blood streaming down his face. All the Secret Service agents, storm the stage. They protect him. But it also, got a guy in the head, a 50-year-old fire department personnel leader, chief at a local fire station. He's killed instantly, protecting his family. And then I believe there were 2 other people, one with another head and another with an arm. Okay, it was horrific. Any of you that saw that, it was serious. It was real. I mean, this guy was up on a roof, not even 150 yards away, outside the perimeter. And according to Kimberly Cheadle, who's the director, it was on a sloped roof, and they were scared to put people up there because of injury, right? So anyhow, she refuses to step down. It's a major failure. Everybody and their brother knows it. And she says, the buck stops with her, and she refuses to step down, and they're going to look at it. And the director of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, says he has 100% confidence in this executive DEI hire. Dan, what should happen to that person, seriously, for failing on a huge mission? Got 1 guy killed, 3 people injured, one of which is the leading candidate for this year's presidential election in America. What should happen to that person?
Yeah, well, I think that, in a meritocracy, the diagnosis is very clear. If you fail in your mission so miserably, can you imagine your mission is to protect the life of the president of the United States, and you failed at that? What else is there to do? You need to, for your own sake and self-respect and a sense of honor, you need to step down. Period. I don't care whether you're Arnold Schwarzenegger or the latest diversity hire from Venezuela. The outcome should be the same.
And that's how simple it really is. And what it really shows everybody in the world how ridiculous DEI is. Diversity, what is it? Equity and inclusion, and basically putting people into positions of authority and leadership to check a box, right? So, that concept itself, what you just explained, meritocracy, people get jobs based on how they perform or what their credentials are. It's destroying organizations and institutions and schools and everywhere. This is proof positive. And then the nerve, the arrogance of somebody to not step down. That's what takes the cake. And then this weak-kneed presidential administration we got doesn't have the courage to do what's right. We're talking about something as simple as right and wrong. If you get hired to do a job and you don't do it, you get fired.
But John, it's more than just a job. You're protecting the life of the president of the nation. You carry a little bit larger burden on your shoulders than, say, if I were driving a bus in Manatee County.
Yeah, yeah, that's in Florida, by the way. Dan's down in Florida. So which brings up, okay, you're right. That's a serious job. But imagine you get hired on flipping burgers at the local fast food chain store, and you can't get it right. You keep burning the burgers, you keep burning the fries, and no matter how many times they tell you, this is how it's done. Take the book home, study it. Let's get some OJT on the job training, and you still can't do it. Are they going to let you go? You're damn right they're going to let you go. You keep burning the French fries and burning the burgers at a fast food restaurant, you're not going to work there very long. And like you said, I don't care if you're an immigrant from Venezuela or Kimberly Cheadle. If she gets hired at one of these fast food restaurants and she burns the burgers, she's going to get fired, which shows you how ridiculous it is that she's going to stay on when she didn't protect the candidate and got a guy killed. Anyhow, this is not to sensationalize this. This is to talk about a topic.
John, this goes a little. This story's not over yet. Did you see the Three Stooges show of the three women trying to holster their pistol unsuccessfully and trying to figure out what's going on? It was honestly, as an American, I was embarrassed for the way in which our Secret Service responded. And it wasn't because they were women. If men responded the same way, I would have been absolutely horrified. So come on, folks. Let's put our thinking caps on. Let's do a little critical thinking. Let's do a little self-reflection. And let's try and determine what's the right course of action.
Yeah, people with common sense call that a Sierra Hotel India Tango show. It's phonetic. Check it out. But, that's the exact truth. Donald Trump's 6'2", 6'3". I did happen to see the video of that woman. No denigration to a female. I'm glad to see her working. But, she's like 5'8". How's she going to protect a guy that towers over her? And how's she going to protect anybody if she keeps asking, what are we doing? You heard the audio. What's going on? What are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, and she's looking around like holy cow, I'm deep in this stuff. And what, I can't even holster my firearm. That's the person I want protecting me. Just to stay home. I'd be better off on my own because I know how to holster a pistol. So maybe they need to open up some positions, Dan. Maybe they need to hire you and me, the old timers. We can come out of retirement and we can work with the Secret Service. Why not?
And in light of past revelations and past suspicions relating to JFK and the Secret Service and nefarious roles and things they played, nobody's pristine in this situation. People should be acting on their absolute best behavior. And I'm not seeing that. Just to your point, how's a 5'6" woman going to protect a 6'2" or 6'3" man weighing 245 pounds? It's just, it's silly. If you need to hire Tyrus to do that job, hire Tyrus to do that job.
Yeah, and that's what Tyrus did. I think Tyrus got his feet wet in the personal bodyguard uh, uh, area of expertise. I think he did that. That's how he broke ground and by protecting people. And people would think twice. If I had Tyrus around me, I'm only 5'8". I'd be pretty secure with Tyrus, knowing that he can handle it. But if it was a 5'3" female, I'd kind of wonder maybe I should do this event tomorrow till they get the right people there.
You don't hire a 5'3" forward in the NBA. Why on earth should you hire a 5'3" person to act as a body shield for the president of the United States?
But that's the whole DEI identity politics. Maybe the Secret Service at the top of their application, has check the boxes, female, and I love females, but female, gay, 5 feet. I know a little bit about handguns. Can you imagine the application? Is you think it looks like that? We need to get a copy of the application, because that hire, and she's working, like I said earlier, but she's working in the wrong position. Maybe she should have been up on the roof where the guy was shooting, instead of
probably make a wonderful sniper, and she wouldn't have to worry so much about slipping on the roof.
Yeah, and which brings us to another point. Kimberly Cheadle said, "Well, we analyzed the situation of that particular building, and it was a sloped roof, and we thought we'd better serve the president's protective team if we just, set up our shop inside the building." Well, the guy outside grabs a ladder from somewhere and climbs up the building, low crawls all the way to the peak and pops off 7 or 8 rounds. This has just gotten to be ridiculous. And the worst thing I think about it is the president he doesn't have the cojones. Mayorkas doesn't have who should have been fired for the open border. And we can get real deep into this. Even, anyhow, we say we're apolitical, say we're not partisan, and when we're really not. We're discussing a situation of grave importance, and it was a fail. And what's really horrifying is that when you don't have consequences for failures of this magnitude, you lose the faith of the people who you serve and who are watching every move you make. And I remember when I got promoted to sergeant in the Army, E5, I wasn't like General Flynn, but I remember my first sergeant said to me, he put me into his office and he congratulated me. He said, you made E5, you're now an NCO. We have an NCO creed. And he just looked at me and he said, watch what you do, because all eyes are on you. And whether you know it or not, people are looking at you for leadership. And that was just an E5. Can you imagine being a Secret Service agent with 15 years of experience working in an organization that has a DEI hire at the head of it, who failed in a massive way and almost got the leading candidate for the president and past president killed? What do you think that does to morale? I've seen people relieve
that does. What do you think that does to morale for everybody? Let's talk about, I think what you're referring to is the morale of the incumbent agents, other Secret Service agents. But what about the people themselves that are 5'6" and are asked to protect the body shield a 6'4", 245-pound human being? That's an impossible task. How would you feel if your boss asked you, I don't know, John, I want you to fly from here to Pensacola with your wings? It's come on. The focus on groups is something that as American, we just have to reject outright. We have to just start calling when people are talking about what group they belong to. We just need to start calling this out. And when it's not women or men, it's 5'2" people versus 6'4" people. That's what we need to be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, then that important detail, whoever overlooked it, they also need to be reprimanded and something put into their personnel file. You know, it reminds me of a time when a guy came in when I was working in my shop several years ago. A customer had given me a mummified ruby-throated hummingbird, and it came with the little nest. He worked for a pest control company, and unfortunately, when they tented this place, the little hummingbird got killed. But it was kind of cool because it had mummified, and it was neat to show this little hummingbird. You could pick him up by his beak. He had the little nest, and I had it in my case, right in my shop, my backpacking store. So about the lunch hour, these two guys come in from the Florida wildlife freshwater game people come in, right? I'm working in my shop. Guy comes in, comes up to the counter. He's like this big badge and everything, right? Like he's in charge of it, right? He's in a private business. And I said, "Can I help you, sir?" Like we always did, you know, trying to put a nice face on our first impression, right? And he goes like this. He steps up to the counter and he goes, "I want to see that." And he steps back. And I'm looking at the knives at the counter and I'm like, "Want to see what?" "Take that bird out." Okay. I mean, he was real serious, right? So I took the bird out. He goes, "Take the nest out too." And he stands back. And I said, "Is there a problem, officer?" And he goes, "I'm just trying to decide if I should arrest you or not." And my wife, who overheard it, she starts laughing like this is a joke. "Arrest him for what?" And he says to her, "I could take you in too." Now here I am, a private citizen in a private business, um, being threatened by somebody with a badge on, quote unquote, doing their job. And so anyhow, long story short, he goes, "You know that that's an endangered species?" I said, "No," which he could have asked me right off the bat first. "Well, where did you get it?" And I explained it to him. And then he started to kind of, he knew he couldn't walk it back because he had to be the big shot. So he says, "Well, I'm going to confiscate it." And you got lucky today. My wife was still giggling like, this is like something out of a, you know, Laurel and Hardy, you know, skit. So he takes the bird and leaves. There was a Subway shop next door, and him and his partner came in. His partner, I could tell, which was standing next to him, felt very uncomfortable. Anyhow, the point of the story is, so he comes in. I start thinking about it. I'm a citizen. I'm a taxpayer. I didn't know that there was a law about hummingbirds, and I'm in my shop trying to make a living. And here comes this big shot governmental employee who did what he did. So I said, "You know what? This is not right. You can't just come in and threaten a guy and his wife on something that he didn't know about." He, of course,
Certainly has no knowledge about, because nobody is informed about things like. And I, based on what you told me and my my critical thinking background, I still don't believe that the hummingbird is a protected species. But if somebody can prove it to me, fine, Alec.
I think he he wanted it for his
I think
collection.
he's just trying to show you that he's a tough guy.
Well,
He's
here's
just
what
a
I
guy
did
with
though. But here's what I did.
probably a micro penis, and he had to get even with you.
Well,
And
I'll take it a step further about accountability. So I started thinking, where's this field office? I want to talk to this guy's superior officer. I want to find out who's running the show, right? So I had to do some phone calls, and I found out that the nearest one, I think it was Immokalee, Florida, or something like that. So I got in touch, and I went all the way to up the chain of command to that officer in charge, and I explained to him what happened. He listened. He listened. He didn't say anything, and then he said, "Okay." He says, "I know." He says, "Call me back in a couple of days, and I'll let you know what I did." So I said, "Thank you, sir. I appreciate your concern. I'm sorry if I broke any laws. I was unaware. I was respectful. I didn't blow my top about this guy. I didn't say, I didn't say he needs to be fired. I didn't say anything. So I called back a few days later, got the guy, and he said, I just want to let you know. And first of all, thank you for calling because we need to know what our field officers are doing out there when they're working in the community. You know, that's it. He said that was a bad reflection on our agency. He said I have put a letter of admonishment in his personnel record file forever. And his last name was Brutus. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I mean, think about that for a second. What an interesting concept. So my point of that whole story and sharing it with you listening is that when we're doing our jobs, we have to do them efficiently and proficiently, and we just have to do them the right way. And if we make a mistake, be open to making a mistake. But if we make a huge mistake, there's a good chance that we could get a letter in our personnel file, or we could get fired. And so Kimberly Cheadle's probably loved by a lot of people. Don't know anything about her background. She got there somehow, so she earned a shot at that position. But I'll say this succinctly: she needs to be fired, and it's that simple. And Mayorkas, who can sit there and say, I have complete confidence in her, after Trump just took a round to his ear, how intelligent is that guy?
Yeah.
Isn't he the same guy that told us the border's secure?
That's a reflection on Mayorkas.
What a goofball. Who are these people running the show, Dan? I mean, what is going on in America? Well, everybody knows, but anyhow.
Well, this is what you see with DEI. What you get is incompetent people fulfilling jobs. But when you're talking about jobs in the government, you're not just talking about jobs. This isn't, this isn't desk job. These are important jobs that reflect the health and safety of the public. And you've got to take a higher level of responsibility and a higher level of concern about the performance of your job, your assigned duties. And this whole DEI thing is just, well, first of all, the Supreme Court has ruled properly so that it's illegal because you can't favor certain groups of people over other groups of people because of the group to which they belong. You can't do it. It's illegal. The Supreme Court has said it. So first of all, let's just end this. Any talk of DEI should be prefaced with, oh, by the way, this is illegal now, and we shouldn't be seeing it anymore. But that's not going to happen.
Well, to be sure, let's give credit where credit's due. I'm positive that 99% of the Secret Service agencies, our agents and the staff and all of the support personnel, people in the forensics labs and all that, I am positive that they do the best they can do with what they've been given. But when 1%, and they're brave people, we all saw with our own eyes how they threw their bodies on top of President Trump. But when the 1%, and that 1% is at the top, and then the supreme commander, when they don't do their job, it affects, you want to call it about the trickle down effect that Joe Biden laughs about all the time. Oh, the trickle down. What does he know about the economy? He's tanked it. But anyhow, I don't want to digress. You get that trickle down effect. And Dan, you've been in organizations where there's a distinct difference in leadership. You can look at a unit. I can remember when we were in the service and we're out there for physical training in the morning with our guidons. And you can tell the rag bags from the good soldiers. And it's all reflection of leadership. That was poor leadership, and that reflects not too good on the Secret Service, but it's even worse on the president. So all I can say is for the Secret Service agents that are doing your job to the best you can do, God bless you. We cannot have a lot of things happen in America without your commitment to excellence. And Kimberly Cheadle, reach down and grab them and resign. It's that simple. And you know, that's sentinels of information. All this information came in, and it comes in from what we see, what we know, and then we have to reject, we have to resist, we have to debunk stuff that's just not truthful. And you cannot be the executive director of the United States Secret Service with the people that you're supposed to protect gets injured or killed. It's that simple. Any closing thoughts, Dan?
Well, it doesn't look good for not only the leader of the Secret Service, but also her boss. This is an example of the deep state and what's wrong with the deep state. And you know, maybe every time a new president comes in, maybe we need to hire new bodyguards. I don't know if that's the right answer or not, but if that's what it takes to rid ourselves of the deep state, then we need to do it.
Well said. So, you know, thank you for listening to another episode, actually the second episode. And Dan's the type of guy, my co-host, that I can pose any question to him. He might not even have a clue, like he didn't today, as what I was going to talk about. But he always comes up with a good answer, a well thought out, critical thought answer. And that's what we're doing here with Neo-Masculine Minutes. We are encouraging men to fulfill the roles as sentinels of information, the harbingers of truth, and the protectors of their families. The family core, the family unit, which is the basis of all societies and cultures. And you mentioned the deep state. We're going to be talking about that too. But they are doing their damnedest by disseminating unreliable information to divide the people. And when you start to critically think about it, you give due diligence. You actually take the time to investigate things instead of taking the path of least resistance. Chances are you'll come up with a commonsensical and logical and reasonable answer as to what's really going on. Thank you for listening.
John.
Thank you, Dan. I'll see you on the next one. I'm going to come up with a showstopper on the next one. Talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Neo-Masculine Minutes podcast show. For the men, it's simple. Think for yourself. Dig deep. Reach down. We appreciate your earnestness in wanting to embrace your masculinity again. You are indeed the sentinels of information. The people you care about are waiting for your leadership, hoping you step up to fulfill your masculine role as protectors of the human race, to save it from any further destruction caused by unreliable information.